Greetings, everyone. How are you today? Welcome back, and thank you so much for those of you that are new subscribers. One thing you should know about me, if you don't know, having watched some of my earlier videos, like I noticed, thank you, Wit, for subscribing. And that one is about cannabis and anxiety, is that I'm a mom, and that's the first thing in my life that is the most important thing, most crucial, critical, honorable, compassionate, beautiful piece of my life is being mom. And the thing I looked forward to second after that was being grandma. I mean, I just couldn't wait to become grandma. I mean, I could wait, but I looked forward to it so much. So my son fell at a skiing accident at Spirit Mountain, which is a local ski hill that I used to take him to all the time. I had him in snowboarding and skiing lessons, private and then group lessons, first at the age of 10. And he went out skiing on February the 5th of 2016. He was 20 years old. He graduated high school the year before at age 19. So he was pretty fresh and pretty young, even though I had raised him and I'd given him a whole lot of insights. There had been some trauma. His father was completely absent in his life despite planning him. And also he was melanated, and we had moved from Santa Cruz as my being 42 in a place that was very open and accepting into the Midwest that was because of a cheaper cost of living. And I wanted more time to homeschool, and I wanted it, which we did, we unschooled. I wanted to have a life where I had more time as a parent and less time making money to have the showy things. So I was willing to give up Santa Cruz, and it hurt, and I really thought it through. So let me go into this a little bit. In 1993, after having done a lot of psilocybin and coming inside of myself, I'd done a really nice therapeutic dose of MDMA, and I'm kind of really glossing over these because they're not just that short. Really healing myself. I'd been into raw foods and vegan foods and plant-based foods and really doing a lot of detoxing. I detoxed my womb. I planned a child, and I'm going to use a word that may throw a lot of people off, but I summoned an ancestor. When you summon someone, when you get a summons, think of it in a legal sense, like a summons and a complaint in the legal world, right? You get a summons and a complaint. That's saying, I'm asking you to come and be somewhere. I'm asking you to do something. And I know because I worked in the legal arena for nearly 18 years as a senior specialist paralegal. So I actively engaged in connecting with an ancestor that was near and dear to me, who I had not seen, that's why the summons, right, in the physical. And I planned a child with my son's father, feeling a yank from my solar plexus, knowing that this was supposed to happen. When I gave birth to my son, August 22nd of 1995, I had just turned 34 years old the month before. I was in outstanding health. But there were a few things that I needed to do for myself as a preparation to conception that I hadn't done yet. And now I know what those things are. So this particular video, I'm going to share with you something, and I'm going to get to it. I'm not going to drag it on 40 minutes, but I need you to have a little bit of the before story, a little bit of the pre-teaching, so you can understand something. My son died. In my words, he transitioned, he shapeshifted, he left Earth not even a year and a half ago. On the April 29th, it will be a year and a half. I am in the fresh, raw stages of grief, not just grief, but traumatic grief, which means that someone died in a way that was so unnatural and that involved so much stress before it happened. Not just he was just ill, but he was addicted, and he had an absolutely not seen reaction to opiates. No one had seen this before. Not the treatment people, not Annie and Deb at CADT, not Jesse Nephew, not any of the people around here who are well familiar with opioid use had never seen anyone go through what my son Zahwa had gone through, and I believe I know why. I was raised very, very differently My grandmother lost her firstborn son the year I was born in 1961. She knew because she was friends with Dr. Ian Stevenson, who, for the Western white world, validated reincarnation by flying to Sri Lanka, Turkey, parts of Asia, and all over the world, now known as Myanmar, in different places. And he validated, substantiated, evidenced, and took in case history where children were born into either same families, meaning they'd already been a grandparent or someone way, way, way back in the Civil War or whatever, and they had migrated back into the family, or they completely were born in this family random, but they really had distinct memories. And most people know if it actually coincides with all the psychology I took in college and continued in other universities and courses and books and a lifelong journey, that our memories from our past, because we are recycled, are fresh until we started what used to be the standard age kids were sent off to school, which used to be 5. 5 is also the developmental age of fear, where children start realizing they're completely separate from mom. Physically, they're separate and that they run the risk of harm. And so we start really immersing them in what you're in, the world of asleep, the world of sheep, the world that are knocked out, and that they're just doing everything obediently and conforming. Now, I have PTSD right now, so when you have PTSD, you also have anxiety because your brain has been so ramped up for such a long time that it's got to take some time to kind of calm down. I stay fairly calm, but I notice I kind of clench my jaw, and I'm also carrying a load with a dog that's geriatric, that's extremely big and heavy, who I didn't, have the heart to just say, well, I'm just going to put him down because it's like way too much work. I'm handling it. It's a lot of work. And so I don't just lay around. So my son's partner, or you might call it a girlfriend, but she's an adult woman, so I won't call her a girl, okay? Name is Christina. And Christina and I have a very deep love for each other. The plan was, they had talked about having a little boy and him being in football, like my son was in football. My son was in hockey. He was in basketball. He did a little tiny stint in soccer. That wasn't his thing. It was lots and lots of skiing and snowboarding. I had him in surfing. We were at the Grand Canyon. We were at Yosemite. We were at Yellowstone, or we were not at Yosemite. We were at Yellowstone a couple of times. And looking at the bisons and the paint pots and all that. Not because we're rich, because we took very, very budget trips. Instead of always running our child, like a few friends I know, who was always running their child to amusement parks and Chuck E. Cheese and Six Flags and all that. And we went out into nature. We got out and saw the bison right up and close, right next to our car, So my son's girlfriend moved in with us, and I was very happy to have her. And I knew that she'd been raised in a very different, mom's Filipino and dad's white. And I knew that she'd been raised very differently. Most people, 99.9% of people, are raised very differently than how I was raised. I was raised about auras and omens, and grandma was a friend of Dr. Ian Stevenson and Zechariah Sitchin. And so I was raised in a very, very different way. And I'm very thankful for it. There was a time that I was kind of sourpussed about it. Like I thought, why didn't I have to be raised to be like the freak, but grandma prophesied on a couple occasions to me in 1976, and they're coming true today. She told me when I was 4 in 1965, of course you can hear the ancestors. Now tell me what they're saying. And I was like, I can't hear them. She goes, yes, you can, right? Well, my uncle could, Darwin, and many of my family members could, and it was just expected in our family. I'll put my tea down for a moment. So I moved into this apartment and sold my 18-year home just 7 months ago. And Christina was here in August and October, both. She had also been to the house in November of 2019 to come to my son's celebration of life, one of the 2 events I put on. And she was really a nice help. We love him. We're so connected with him. It was just my son and I for the majority of those 24 years. And then Christina came, and she was just such an amazing, beautiful gift. I'm just so thankful. When she came here and she flew back home in October, I sent her a message on Facebook Messenger where we often will share pictures and ideas. And then sometimes she'll call me on the video and we'll talk and talk, sometimes for hours and hours, or we'll just be quiet and I'll be doing what I'm doing in the house because it was winter. She's doing what she's doing, or she's even sleeping, and I'm looking at her beautiful face on the screen. And I said, I woke up and close to the morning hour, I know because I got up to go pee at 5 o'clock in the morning. My son said, here's the part of the whole video, and this is what I've done my whole life. He said, Mama, I'm going to bring Christina halfway around the world. What? Okay. And even though I have developed, please don't use the word you're gifted. Please don't. I have developed how to communicate what I sense, what I see internally, what I hear, what I feel with hundreds and hundreds of people on the massage table, thus my first book, My Side of the Table, before I really could understand how to become a better author. It takes time. It takes time to develop this. It takes time to develop being an author. It takes time to heal. Your child is not going to die and you be completely spun out with 4 years of addiction, 2016, 17, 18, and 19. In 2016, it was kind of like, well, okay, he kind of hit it for a good part after the opiates were given. And I thought something's kind of weird, but it's young people. And then I'd go over and I'd start knocking on the window, and Christina's like, I think you knocked on our window like hundreds of times. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did. So here's the kicker. Mama, I'm going to take her halfway around the world. Don't you hear and you think to yourself, that doesn't even sound right. Doesn't even make sense. You hear a crow? Right out the window. Okay. This is an electrical field that you live in. And I swear, I think I'm one of the last who can possibly not teach it, but guide us. I think I'm one of the last. And I know people here now and then, but if this isn't stable, the body isn't stable, as it is, I have the anxiety. So I really, because I've gotten such a good development on the hearing and the sensing, it's easier for me to keep it going. But if you try to start it when your brain is in cerebral inflammation, your body's obese, your body's toxic, it's not going to work so well. Christina messaged me last night before I lay down to go to sleep at 10:30 from Qatar, 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 halfway around the world. I could tell you 15 other examples of what he said. Part of what he said when she went back home in November was, I don't like that. He didn't like it that she was going back to Los Angeles, that she was going to be around certain people. He knew that she was hurting so deep, like I am, like I'm hurting. It hurts, it stings. I talk with other people in grief that have gone through losing a very long-term dear partner. And they're like, you're in the most raw part of the grief the first 2 years. There is no calendar or no stages. Even Elizabeth Kubler-Ross admitted, per David Kessler, that those stages were wrong, right? So the people around you, they want you, just get over it, hurry up. I mean, you look like you're fine to me. I don't look fine. I don't sound fine. And while I may be healing myself physically out of necessity, while I may be working on my emotional self to keep myself where I'm not a drinker and I'm not Xanaxing and I'm not smoking and vaping all day long like the man that almost ran into me in a car yesterday. My son informed me just several months ago, and I informed Christina on a Facebook Messenger, it's in writing, months ago, last year. I believe it was, I'd have to go back on Messenger, and I likely will. Taking a liver tonic here. Because I'll tell you what, if you know what I know about the system, you're going to be angry. When your child is gone, when your opportunities are gone, when the friends around you cannot possibly come up in their levels, you can see that it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay. I have been able to tune in and say, what's going to happen with this one or what's going to happen with that one. And 90% of the time, I will be able to hear it. And sometimes I'm told that's not for you. That's, you don't get to know, right? Obviously, I don't know everything. But my son gave a clear message, not one message, not two, not five, not 10. He's given many to me. Mama, one thing is going to lead you to another. He knew from before he was born in 1995 that Mama wanted a bus. I really wanted a Class C RV. It's about $50,000 one that I didn't have to wrench on or worry about it breaking down with the dogs and I, and we could kind of just cruise around. That didn't come. But before he was born, I was talking with Pat and Bob, and we were doing African drumming for a couple of years, 92, 93, 91, 92, 93. And the same thing with African dance to live drumming, till I got to perform with the local gals, maybe not an African dance troupe perform, but Congolese dance. And I started off as a rhythm dork. My son was in my womb, not my belly, not my stomach, my baby, my Zahwa, my ancestor was in my womb while I did African dance to live drumming barefoot with loads of women sweating, smiling, full of joy, and then going over to the ocean that was always so close to us for 42 years and having this beautiful ocean mist and iodine. I felt like I was the most mystical, amazing life, like everyone else. I wanted everyone else to be an amazing, mystical, natural, connected goddess or god. We're all that. But what happens when people around you go, what? Are you crazy? That doesn't even make sense. And I go, well, first, she told me that her grandfather had died just less than a month ago in the Philippines because her mother is from the Philippines. And then her mother put together a trip pretty quickly. I thought, oh my God, during COVID, we're going to fly to Philippines. I personally do not believe in that. I don't subscribe to it. So from day one and before, I was reading a study from China in February, and I do not subscribe. So, you can have all your feelings about that you want. That's where I stand. And that's where I'll rest. She said, yes, I'm going to go. I said, boy, I don't know. I see something. And I gave her the vision that I saw. I also did a card reading. I've been doing card readings since I was 5. I mean, my grandmother was doing billet readings with me at 4. And then she sent me a picture on Facebook Messenger of her in India. That's where her first flight stopped. And then on to the Philippines to Cebu. And then again, last night, coming back, Mama, I'm in Qatar. Whoa, that's a place that my son told me before he was in the throes of addiction by a chemical that has been designed to hijack the mesolimbic system and not let go for many, hundreds of thousands are dropping. Those sirens that you hear, are taking opiate overdoses, largely. Not all, but of course, I understand, but largely. That's the only place we had to go to in Duluth, and I'm thankful for Annie and Deb, but we need something more. My son said, Mama, I'm going to take Christina halfway around the world. And he did. I've gone into the realms with my son. I've never been in the realms before. Never. I've traveled extensively. Lucid traveling, astral traveling. I don't care what all these little newfangled designer labels are. And recently, recent 100 to 200 years, we travel. We reincarnate. We remember. Oh, so that means that a 5 or a 10-year-old is an absolute spiritual guru? Maybe, but they're going to have to also come up through their moons and their levels because now they don't have the experience. So you can't just throw it at them, kind of like we do with the Dalai Lama, right? Okay. The Dalai Lama is not the only one who's purported, because I don't know for a fact, to have remembered and pointed out the clothing exactly that belonged to him in his previous life, his previous incarnation as a flower. My son said, and I gave it to her, the message, and I wrote it on Messenger, so it's there, it's documented, as are many others. He told me, and he showed me within 2 months after he died, it was my Christmas gift. He was sitting at the front of the house with his feet propped up, ready to go, with a mask in this hand folded in 4. But I was able to look, and even though he wasn't able to talk, he showed me the image. I am proficient, just like I was with the woman who's the pastor's wife in Cloquet, with it being her mother and being the greatest jewel. Or her brother coming in when I went to go get a massage, right? Or Gina Sarberg Jorgensen when her friend came in from long ago and I described him to the T and he kept cutting jokes. I was seeing a little mini man in my head and it comes in differently every time. For the pastor's wife, mom was a silhouette of a woman, just a silhouette profile, right? Like a shadow, but you can see the outline as the silhouette. And she's pacing back and forth. And then she goes like this and shows me this great big jewel. And I get the feeling, the heart is always involved, the feeling that it's her mother. I don't know her, I'd never met her. Or I go to New Mexico and I'm on a road trip going to bring Zahwa his big boom box. And I bought a little travel trailer for $400. And I figure I'm going to flip it and then I don't have to drive the travel trailer back. Probably make some money on it in California. And we'll be able to have something to kind of camp out in. So I brought a local young woman and I brought my partner at the time of 4 years, Ox. We had the dogs in the back. We said, well, now we can stop in Arizona. We can stop in Sedona. I'll show you guys Sedona. It's amazing. By the time we get down there, we'll give Zahwa his boombox. I'll see my baby. Zahwa and Christina moved back as soon as she graduated. So they were back with me until October of 2016 without me knowing that there was an addiction brewing underneath. I thought, well, okay, we're healing the clavicle. It was broken. It was almost perforating. And we're off the opiates and everything's okay now. But my son loves me and he loves her. And I love him. The joy of my life has been robbed. Yeah. So I'm very interested in addiction. I'm interested in ibogaine. I'm interested in what's going on in the world because I know he's on the way back. Because I was raised to understand that this is what happens. And this is the cycle of life. Not the cycle of life and death. It's a cycle of life. It's a metamorphosis. It's morphogenic. Okay. So I want to thank you to all the new subscribers. I appreciate that because there is safety in numbers, and I'd like to bring you more and more. I hope the next time that Christina is here, or maybe even remotely, we can do a session and show you that your loved ones will also want to reach out and speak with you, right? Even though you haven't maybe had the kind of upbringing that I had, you can still start developing this within yourself. It is religion that squashes it down, it's afraid of it. It's science and the evidence based that is pushing the people towards insanity. Fear and insanity and instability and disconnection, and all of those are no good. They're no good. Okay. So thank you for joining me. That's what I wanted to share today. My daughter-in-law, right, my son's partner of nearly 5 years, was in Qatar last night. She had messaged me from India. She was in the Philippines for weeks. And I'm glad. I think it's very healing and cathartic for her to be around more nature-driven, nature-inspired family that's connected. Big, big family. Everyone still comes together instead of, oh, I'm kind of busy. I'm too busy. You got stay-at-home mothers that are too busy, right? I don't get that. I never had that luxury. So anyway, think about you're busy. Think about what's real. Think about sharing this and think about that if I could hear my son message after message and they've all come true. Got the bus, got the puppy mom always wanted, we got into the apartment mom wanted. My son has been behind this whole thing. The house sold. I tried selling it 5 times before. So you want to talk about trauma? I wanted to get my son out of there. And every time I put the house up for sale, summer would go and the house wouldn't be sold. Winter would come and they'd go, well, nothing sells in the winter. Nobody wants to move in the middle of winter. Might as well take it off the market. And I'm like, oh God, we're stuck again. Stuck in Cloquet. I want out. You do what you can do with what you have to do it with. That's what you do. And you do the most important things in your day. You don't do the things that are not important. You reach out and do the most because you don't know. Life is not promised for me, for you, or for anyone else beyond right now, right? And so even though we don't need to absolutely fear death, we need to fear the domination that is pushing people into what my son sustained, which is an out of order death. Out of order means the natural order would have been I would have matured into a wise old woman and enjoyed my grandbabies and been there to help this new family. And I would have passed on my wealth, wisdom, and my wellness abilities and everything else to my heirs, my people. But no, a 24-year-old doesn't die before a 59-year-old. It's not supposed to work like that. Okay? All right, thank you very much and look forward to more.